안녕하세요. 원상 있는 고양이 제니예요. 오늘은 해리포터 1권 챕터 13 Nicholas Flamel 시작할게요. 냥! Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone Chapter 13 Nicholas Flamel. Dumbledore had convinced Harry not to go looking for the Mirror of Erised again. For the worst of the Christmas holidays, invisibility cloak stayed folded at the bottom of his trunk. Harry wished he were seen in the mirror easily, but he couldn't. He started having nightmares. Over and over again, he dreamed about his parents disappearing, a flash of green light, while a high voice cackled with laughter. You see, Dumbledore was right. That mirror could drive him mad, said Ron, when Harry told him about these dreams. Hermione, who came back the day before term started, took a different view of things. She was torn between the horror of the idea of Harry being out of bed, rooming the school 3 nights in a row, if Filch had caught you, and disappointment that he hadn't at least found out who Nicholas Flamel was. They had almost given up hope of ever finding Flamel in a library book, even though Harry was still sure he had read the name somewhere. Once term had started, they were back to skimming through books for 10 minutes during their breaks. Harry had even less time than the other two because cricket practice had started again. Wood was working the team harder than ever. Even the endless rain had replaced the snow couldn't dampen his spirits. The Weasleys complained that Wood was becoming a fanatic, but Harry was on Wood's side. If they won their next match against Hufflepuff, they would overtake Slytherin in the House Championship, or the first time in 7 years. Quite apart of wanting to win, Harry found that he had fewer nightmares when he was tired after training. Then, during one particularly wet and muddy practice section, Wood gave the team a bit of bad news. He just got very angry with the Weasleys, who kept dive-bombing each other, pretending to fall off their brooms. "Will you stop messing around?" he yelled. "That's exactly the sort of thing they lose at the match. Snape's refereeing this time, and they'll be looking for any excuse to not point up Gryffindor." George Weasley really did fall off his broom at these words. "Snape's refereeing?" he spluttered, the mouth full of mud. "When's he refereeing the Quidditch match? He's not going to be fair if he might overtake Slytherin." The rest of the team next to George complained too. "It's not my fault," said Wood. "We're just gonna make sure we're playing a clean game so Snape hasn't got an excuse to pick on us." Which was all very well, thought Harry. He had another reason for not inviting Snape near him when I was playing Quidditch. The rest of the team hung back to talk to each other as usual at the end of the practice, but Harry headed straight back to the Gryffindor common room, where he found Ron and Hermione playing chess. Chess was ever lost at, something Harry and Ron thought was very good for her. "Don't touch me for a moment," said Ron, when Harry sat down next to him. "I need to concentrate." He caught up sight of Harry's face. "What's the matter with you? You look terrible." Speaking quietly so that no one else will hear, Harry told the other two about Snape's sudden, sinister desire to be a Quidditch referee. "Don't play," said Hermione once. "Say you're ill," said Ron. "Pretend to break your legs," Hermione suggested. "Really break your head," said Ron. "I can't," said Harry. There's a reserve sticker. If I back out, Gryffindor can't play at all. At that moment, Neville toppled into the common room. How he managed to climb through the portrait hole was anyone's guess, because his legs had been stuck together with what Watson recognized at once as the leg locker curse. He has met the bunny hole all the way to Gryffindor Tower. Everyone fell over laughing except Hermione, who leapt up and performed the Canticus. Neville's legs trembled apart, and he got to his feet, trembling. What happened? Hermione asked him, leading him over to sit with Harry and Ron. Malfoy, said Neville shirkily. I met him outside the library. He then said looking for someone to practice that on. Go to Professor McGonagall, Hermione urged Neville. Report him! Neville shook his head. I don't want more trouble, he mumbled. You've got to stand up to him, Neville, said Ron. He used to walking all over people, but that's nowhere to lie down and burn to bed and make it easier. There's no need to tell me I'm not brave enough to be in Gryffindor. Malfoy's already done that, Neville choked out. Harry felt in the pocket of his robes and turned up the chocolate frog, the very last one from the box Hermione had given him for Christmas. He gave it to Neville, who looked as though he might cry. You're worth 12, Malfoy, so Harry said. The sorting has chosen for Gryffindor, didn't it? And where's Malfoy? In stinking Slytherin. Neville's lips twitched in the weak smile as he unwrapped the frog. Thanks, Harry. I think I'll go to bed. Did you own the card? You could collect them, don't you? As Neville walked away, Harry looked at the famous wizard card. Dumbledore again, he said. He was the first one I had. He gasped. He stared at the back of the card, and then looked up at Ron and Hermione. I found him, he whispered. I found Philomel. I told you I read the name somewhere before. I was reading on the train coming here. Listen to this. Professor Dumbledore is particularly famous for his defeat of the Dark Wizard Grindelwald in 1945, for the discovery of 12 uses of dragon blood, and his work on alchemy with his partner Nicholas Flamel. Hermione jumped to her feet. She hadn't looked so excited since they got to the marks for their first piece of homework. Stay there, she said, and she sprinted up the stairs to the girls' dormitories. Harry and Ron barely had time to exchange mystified looks before she was dashing back, an enormous old book in her arms. I never thought to look in here, he whispered excitedly. I got a library weeks ago for the reading. What? Said Ron. But Hermione told me to be quiet until she looked something up, and started flicking frantically through the pages, muttering to herself. At last, she found what she was looking for. I knew it! I knew it! I realized to speak yet, said Ron grumpily. Hermione ignored him. Nicholas Flamel, she whispered dramatically, is the only known maker of the first stone. This didn't have the effect she had expected. The what? Said Harry and Ron. Oh, honestly, don't you two read? Look, read that! There! She pushed the book towards them, and Harry and Ron read. The ancient study of alchemy is concerned with making the philosopher's stone, and legend reserves them to the stone-making powers. The stone will transform into metal into pure gold. It also produces elixir of life, which will make the drinker immortal. And there were many reports of the sorcerer's stone over the centuries, but only stone comically images belongs to Nicholas Flamel, the noted alchemist and opera lover. Mr. Flamel, who celebrated his 665th birthday last year, enjoys a quiet life in Devon with his light Thermal 658. See? Said Hermione, when Harry and Ron had finished. The dog must be girding Flamel's for less of her snow. I bet he asked Dumbledore to keep it safe for him, because they're friends and she knows Somerset after it. That's why he wanted the stone moved out of Gringotts. A stone that makes gold and stops you ever dying, said Harry. No wonder Snape's after it. Anyone would want it. And no wonder we couldn't find Flamel in that study. Isn't the level of individuality, said Ron, is very easily to 665, is it? Next morning, it missed against the dark arts. While copying down different ways of drinking werewolf ice, Harry and Ron was still discussing what they'd do at the Philosopher's Stone if it had one. It wasn't until Ron set him by his own Quidditch team that Harry remembered about Snape and the coming match. I'm going to play, he told Ron and Hermione. If I don't, all the Slytherin will think I'm so scared to face Snape. I'll show them. It will really wipe the smiles off their faces if we win. Just as long as the wife making you off the pitch, said Hermione. As the match drew nearer, however, Harry became more and more nervous. Whatever he told Ron and Hermione, the rest of the team were too calm either. The idea of overtaking Slytherin in the House Champions was wonderful. No one had done it for nearly 7 years. But would they be allowed to with such a biased referee? Harry didn't know what he was imagining at all. He seemed to keep running into Snape wherever he went. At times, even wondered whether Snape was following him, trying to catch him on his own. Potions lesson were turning to sort of weekly torture. Snape was so horrible to Harry. Could Snape possibly know that Hal found out to be his Philosopher's Stone? Harry didn't see how he could, yet he sometimes had the horrible feeling that Snape could read minds. Harry knew whether vision good luck us in the changing rooms next afternoon, and Ron and Hermione were wondering whether they'd ever see him alive again. This wasn't comforting. Harry hardly heard a word of Wood's pep talk as he pulled on his Quidditch robes and picked up his Nimbus 2000. Ron and Hermione, meanwhile, had found themselves in the stands next to Neville. He couldn't understand why they looked so grim and worried, or why had they brought them once to the match. Little did Harry know, Ron and Hermione had been secretly practicing the Leglecker curse. They got the idea from Malfoy losing in Neville. They were ready to use it on Snape if he showed any sign of wanting to hurt Harry. Now don't forget, it's a Rocco Murder Mortis. As Ron slipped his one up his sleeve. I know, Ron said. Don't rag. His changing room would have taken Harry aside. Don't want to press you, Potter, but if we ever need an airy capture of the snitch, it's now. Finish the game before Snape can favor Hufflepuff too much. The whole school's out there, said Fred Weasley, peering out the door. Even Blimey, Dumbledore's come to watch. Harry's heart did a somersault. Dumbledore, he said, dashing to the door to make sure. Fred was right. There is no mistaking that silver beard. Harry could have laughed out loud with relief. He was safe. There is simply no way that Snape would dare to try to hurt him if Dumbledore was watching. Perhaps that was why Snape was looking so angry as the teams marched onto the pitch. Something that Ron noticed too. "I never seen him look so mean," he told Hermione. "Look, they're off." Ouch! Someone had poked Ron in the back of the head. It was Malfoy. "Oh, sorry, Weasley, I didn't see you there." Malfoy grinned broadly at Crabbe and Goyle. "Wonder how long Brothers can stay in this room this time. I want a bet. About you, Weasley." Ron didn't answer. Snape had just as Ron and Hufflepuff had handled it because George Weasley had hit a bludger at him. Hermione, who had all her fingers caught in the lap, was squinting fixedly at Harry. Mercer came like a hawk looking for the snitch. "You know Hogwarts choose people from the Gryffindor team?" said Malfoy loudly a few minutes later, as Snape awarded Hufflepuff another penalty for no reason at all. "It's people they feel sorry for. See, there's Potter, who's got my parents, and the Weasleys, who no money. You should be on the team, Longbottom. You have no brains." Neville went bright red and turned his seat to face Malfoy. "I'm worth 12 of you, Malfoy," he stammered. Malfoy, Crabbe, and Goyle howled with laughter, but Ron, still not daring to take his eyes from the game, said, "You tell him, Neville." "Longbottom, if brains will go, you'd be poorer and then Weasleys that say something." Ron's nerves was already stretched at breaking point with anxiety about Harry. "I'm warning you, Malfoy, one more word." "Ron," said Hermione suddenly. "Harry!" "What? Where?" Harry had suddenly gone into a spectacular jibe, which drew gasps of cheers from the crowd. Hermione stood up, her crossed finger in her mouth, as Harry struck toward the ground like a bullet. "You lean like a Weasley. Potter's obviously spotted some money on the ground," said Malfoy. Ron snapped. Before Malfoy knew what was happening, Ron was on top of him, wrestling him to the ground. Neville hesitated, then clambered over the back of his seat to help. "Come on, Harry!" Hermione screamed, leaping onto her seat to watch as Harry spat straight at Snape. She didn't even notice Malfoy and Ron rolling around under her seat, or the scuffles and yelps coming from the whir of fist-filled walls, Neville, Crabbe, and Goyle. Up in the air, Snape turned on his broomstick, just in time to see something scarlet shoot past him, missing him by inches. Next second, Harry had pulled out of the dive the snitch clasped in his hand. The stands erupted. It had to be a record. No one could ever remember Snitch being caught so quickly. Run, where are you? The game's over. Harry's won. We won. Gryffindor in the lead, shrieked Hermione, dancing up and down in her seat and hugging Parvati Patil in the run in front. Harry jumped up his broom a foot from the ground. He couldn't believe it. He'd done it. The game was over. It had barely less than 5 minutes. As Gryffindors came spilling onto the pitch, so Harry landed nearby, white-faced and tight-lipped. Then Harry felt the hand of the steward and looked up at Dumbledore's smiling face. "Well done," said Dumbledore quietly, so that only Harry could hear. "Nice to see you haven't been brooding about that mirror. Been keeping busy. Excellent." Snape spat bitterly in the ground. Harry left the changing room alone some time later to take his Nimbus 2000 back to the broom shed. He couldn't ever remember feeling happier. He had really done something to be proud of now. Name any more? The evening air had never smelled so sweet. He walked over the damp grass, reliving the last hour at his head. Which was a happy blur, Gryffindors running to lift it in their shoulders, and Ron and Hermione distance jumping up and down, Ron cheering through the heavy nosebleed. Harry had reached the shed. He leaned against the wooden door and looked up at Hogwarts with his window glowing red in the setting sun. Gryffindor in the lead, he'd done it. He'd shown Snape. And speaking of Snape, a hooded figure came swiftly down the front step of the castle. Clearly not wanting to be seen, it walked as fast as possible towards the forbidden forest. Harry's victory faded from his mind as he watched. He recognized the figure's curly rock, Snape. While everyone else was at dinner. What was going on? Harry jumped up back in the Nimbus 2000 and took off. Gliding silently over the castle, he saw Snape enter the forest in a romp. He followed. The tree was too thick that he couldn't say Snape had gone. He flew in circles lower and lower, brushing the top branches of trees until he heard voices. He glided towards them and landed noiselessly in a towering beech tree. He climbed carefully over the branches, holding tight to his broomstick, trying to see through the leaves. Below, in the shadowy clearing, stood Snape, but he wasn't alone. Quirrell was there too. Harry couldn't make a look on his face. It was stirring worse than ever. Harry strained to catch what they were saying. Did you know what to make clear about the places of sufferers? Oh, I thought we'd keep this private, said Snape, his eyes. Students aren't supposed to know about the Philosopher's Stone, after all. Harry leaned forward. Quirrell was mumbling something. Snape interrupted him. Have you found out how to get past the beast of Hagrid's yet? But Severus, I don't want to me as your enemy, Quirrell, said Snape, taking a step towards him. I don't know what you... We know perfectly well, I mean. An owl hooted loudly, but Harry dimly filled the trees. He steadied himself in time to hear Snape say, You're a little bit of Hogwarts pocus. I'm with. But I don't. Very well, Snape cut it. Very little chat soon when you've had time to think things over and decide where your loyalties lie. He threw his cloak over his head and strode out of the clearing. It was almost dark now, but Harry could see Quirrell standing quite still, as though he was petrified. Harry, where have you been? Hermione squeaked. We won! You won! We won! Shouted Ron, thumping Harry on the back. And I gave Malfoy a black eye and Neville tried to take on Crabbe and Goyle single-handed. He's still a cold, but Madame Purpose is being right. Talk about showing Slytherin. Everyone is waiting for you in the common room. We have a party. Fred and George stole some cake and stuff from the kitchens. Never mind that now, said Harry breathlessly. Just find the empty room. You wait till you hear this. He made sure Peeves wasn't inside before shutting the door behind them. Then he told them what he'd seen and heard. So you're right. It is Sorcerer's Stone, and Snape's trying to force Quirrell to help him get it. He asked if he knew how to get Fluffy, and he said something about Quirrell's hocus pocus. I reckon the other things guarding the stone apart from Fluffy. Lowering enchantments probably, and Quirrell would have done some anti-dark art spell which Snape needed to break through. So you mean the stone's only safe as Quirrell sent up to Snape, said Hermione in alarm. It'll be gone by next Tuesday, said Ron. Thank you for listening. Bye-bye.